Hello everyone, and it's our new video for Grill Chess channel. I'm FIDE Master Vladimir Chernikov, and today we'll talk about things that happening in the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam held in Germany. As you all know, there was a starting round where 10 players, 2 wildcards and 8 qualified players played between them. 2 players were eliminated, like I predicted in our previous video. It was Levon Aronian and surprisingly as well Vladimir Fedosiev. So 8 players were playing quarterfinals, the highest seeded players were choosing their opponents, and Hikaru Nakamura played versus Jawahir Sindarov in the quarterfinals. Basically, name of the video is saying that Hikaru is not playing well lately, as Hans Niemann always says that he's getting older. Let's see if it's true. What I can say in advance, that for me, at least in time scramble, Hikaru, I cannot recognize him. He's sometimes even in the game he was doing some horrible moves. Let's see what happened. So yeah, Sindarov is a youngster, the guy who played very well. The main part of the tournament he was like 4.5 out of 5 after first day, and he finished I think 2nd or 3rd in the final standings of the first round. And it was, let's say, was the first game between them. So before each day there is they draw with which number will be like how pieces will be placed. So it's completely random position and f4. So as Kamer said in the interview, he was asked by Judith Polgar, like, what usually professional players take a look at this kind of chess, like in freestyle, when game starts. So first of all, he said about some hanging pawns, right? And we see that Sindarov does it pretty well. He is pointing out that a7 pawn is hanging, and not just hanging a pawn, but if with it together, the rook can potentially will end up trapped, right? Also, he said that except of this, we need to see the queen's position. Let's say in corner, queen is never standing good, because for queen to get out, he needs to either capture some central pawn with it, and then like he can bring it to some kind of side, or king side or queen side, or he needs to start to push the pawns, usually until h4, so queen is getting late to the game. And also he said the bishops in center are quite bad. And it's interesting, right? Looks like, well, why it's bad? I mean, I can bring it to b6 in question of 2 seconds, but then it's true that it will occupy the square for the knight, potentially. And, okay, white also can very well limit this bishop. Also, I'll say that more easier to play with white, obviously. I think more even easier than in classical chess, because in classical chess it's basically the same. It's white who is in driver's seat, but at least black knows some theory, black knows more or less how to reply. But in freestyle chess, when all positions are random, we'll see that there are some that are quite hard. So Nakamura plays the most natural move, knight to b6. Worth mentioning you that there was a very interesting game, I suggest you to take a look at it, between Magnus Carlsen and Abdusattorov, where Abdusattorov only won because 5 games that were played, everyone played f4 with white, and only Abdusattorov replied with f5 with black, and then there were like captures, both exchanged trapped, very exciting games that Magnus Carlsen won convincingly. But knight b6, more natural approach, e4 and f5 by Hikaru. It's a kinda pawn gambit, because white can capture on f5, but okay, it's not that gambit because a2 hangs. So after this, knight b3, defending a2 pawn, fe, rook takes e4, bishop d5. So as we pointed out once again, that rook on e4 is not that great in these positions, even in classical chess. What was good idea at some positions is to play g3, but here it's impossible because of d5 is happening. For you to just know, let's say, some similar like ideas to this, let's say in Magnus' game, where it was f5, like bishop captures, bishop takes here, and let's say e4 was played by Magnus. After, it was very important to take fe4, let's say, to here have d5, and everything fine, because move c4 will not be possible, breaking the center, right? Because black can sacrifice in exchange and have very solid position with great bishop on c4. And let's say in the game, other youngster Abdusattorov, he took the exchange first, and that's what allowed Magnus to play g3 and d5. Now it's a bad move because of c4, breaking all the center. So Magnus took with the queen, and his queen went away very fast, as we saw that it's kind of problematic. Here Naka is aware, so rook takes e4, bishop d5, rook back, and here, first part of the game, basically until that of the wars happened to Hikaru, he played almost perfectly. We'll see. He, first of all, I think has no problems in the opening. Yeah, castles, right? We see that for those who doesn't know, in freestyle chess, you castle like a typical castle. Like king always, if you castle long, king will be on the c1 and rook on d1. And if you castle king sides, then king will be on g1 and rook on f1. So basically you need to free the space between king and rook in order to be able to do castle. And obviously the squares that they will occupy after the castle, right? So let's say if you want to castle short, you need to remove this bishop, since king will be going here, and then castle short. Okay, here, yeah, I mean, I think there was a move before, right? So you can go to castle, yeah, because the rook is already there. But to castle other side, so he doesn't need to free anything, just, yeah, this rook jumps. So we continue, bishop c7, g3, rook d8, d4. We pressure the d5 square here a little bit, pieces are on long diagonal, and g5. Great move by Hikaru. As we see now, it's much more looking like a classical chess, both kings castled already, and we see more or less normal positions that can occur in classical chess, so g5 very strong. White puts pressure on the center, black tries to break this, so everything fine. Here a strange move happened, f5. If I were Java here and never play f5, probably just strange, I mean, because, yeah, I know that if you take, probably what concerned him that queen will go away, I mean, not to a5, definitely to b5, but, yeah, and he tried to play some domination against the pawn, but actually, against the queen, I mean, but actually there are some problems with his pawns, that knight cannot jump to the square, also some files become open, so d5, great move, knight g4, h5, and we'll see now that Hikaru gained a lot of advantage. You see, like he breaks all the center completely, he wins a pawn, and eventually supposed to win a game. We'll see that all the trades happened extremely fast. It's true that some pressure might be with bishop pair here, but Hikaru managed it very, very well. Finally, it's captured, knight c4. I mean, this is a great move again, because after rook takes, there will be problems on the first rank. So king c1, knight f6, bishop e2, rook h1, b3. Knight e3, take, and we arrive to this endgame. Completely winning for the player of Hikaru level, and let's see what happens now. You cannot see it here, but Hikaru in this moment has 19 minutes on the clock, and his opponent just 4. I mean, Hikaru can do knight e4, winning just pawn almost by force, because knight c3 is like, I mean, after c4 here, because knight c3 is a winning pawn by force, right? I mean, it's a fork, you take, and white can't really reach the pawn fast, because whenever he'll go to e2, there will be fork, another one. So I mean, it's just 2 extra pawns, there is no way for white to do something. Let's say you can play this, let's say 2 king defense, maybe, let's say capture, and for instance, whatever move, right? So knight's untouchable, never, because pawn will be promoting, since a dark square. Pawn is untouchable because then obvious 3 versus 2 with a pass pawn, black's winning the endgame, so he just will come with a king, push the pawn, whatever he wants he can do. Hikaru chose another move that also was winning, it looked like it was winning. c5, creative, and d4, also completely winning position, other way to play it. And then somehow, after c5, Hikaru starts to complicate his life a little bit, let's say he brings the king. And okay, in this position I became a little bit shocked, I became shocked a bit, because like how hard is it for a top player find that d3 is completely winning move? I mean, like you have 2 pawns that better even than rook in some situation, and here's the bishop defending, so taking c3. Obviously it's not direct promotion, in this case it will get blocked, even though I believe that's still winning position, or e2, it's okay, it's even worse, but I mean, both of these moves even are winning. But if you want to be precise, let's say play maybe e2 first, to tie the king and a5, right? So again, white has to take, and you just play maybe knight e6, you collect pawns, still the same story, never king can capture because of this, and bishop is not on time to capture because knight defense. You just go this way with the king and take. If b5, it doesn't change anything, still knight e6. I mean, we just win this endgame, let's say knight d4, bishop cannot be sacrificed once again, because even pawn cannot be recovered, but even though, let's say it was possible, it's winning. So I mean, what we are talking about, like, I mean, bishop g2, let's say, or excuse me, like knight d4, bishop g2, knight c6, like still king and castle cannot grab the pawn. So it was completely winning. Hikaru didn't see, and he plays knight g6 back for some reason. Then he finds more hard idea, more difficult idea to play for a win. That is good. He brings the king. Yeah, obviously white needs to take some action, otherwise king will just come closer. He pushed and then he goes back. So it's one of the principles of the endgame. You want to push pawns closer to you, actually, so it will be easier for you to target them. That's what Hikaru tries to do, and here he throws the game away with knight g6. Not easy here, because we'll see what's the problem. Knight g6, here white has brilliant resource, b6, take, king goes away, king d3, and Hikaru thought that he's completely winning. He plays knight f4, if king takes, then e2, winning the bishop and the game. And if this pawn is untouchable, then I mean e2 still, like king can come, whatever, right? He basically blocked it. Let's say we play, there's this kind of actually Zugzwang, right? I mean we cannot move the bishop, because after any move with the bishop will be captured. If king d4 is not possible, then it's Zugzwang. e2 here, I mean f6 pawn takes, it's a Zugzwang position, or it's check, yeah, as well, yeah, for hot as well. So looks like winning, but suddenly this is resource. Turns out after move king d3, very strong. Like if white managed to trade this pawn, white is managing to draw the game. So a6 is idea, but king needs to be on b5. In case of king c4 or in case of king c5, anyway it was happening, king was reaching the square, but okay, king d3, knight c4 now, and suddenly a6 is unstoppable. Naka tries to throw a check, king c5, but then still knight is getting hit. Maybe if not, the king can come, but knight's hanging, so knight has to go away, and again king b5. So there's no way. I mean a6 again threatening. If you go back, there is repetition. If you go to c3, basically any move is fine. Let's say we can try king c4, knight hanging, knight has to go away, wherever, and okay, king b5 again. And that's how it ended up in the draw. How Hikaru was supposed to win this game? There was idea, instead of playing king knight g6, to play this king b8 move. That was already very hard, it's true, because idea that if now b6 is played, first of all you can keep the pawns alive, but important that it's not coming with a check, right? And more pawns are better. So let's say if white does now the same thing, like knight f4, okay, then bishop is badly placed, so okay, I cannot even triangle, right? Yeah, I'm losing a tempo, just there's no way. You understand, right? Basically, because why black even triangled. So that's how it's supposed to win, just to avoid the check, and then black is completely winning. But basically what I'm trying to point out is that here it's already kind of hard, but why? I mean, first of all, knight c3 you can win. Well, it's other way to play. For sure Naka playing this was sure that he's winning, and he was. But what's this here? I mean, like how is it on yours you don't play d3 in this position, like promote? You know, it's all about this. So horrible game by Hikaru. It was first game, he didn't win it. Second game was boring. I will not show it to you. It ended up in quite obvious draw. And now the tiebreak begins. And let's see the first and second game. First one was extremely short. Again, Hikaru starts to play very well. And we'll see now e4, taking control of the center. Okay, you see that some moves, computer pointing out this is small mistakes or inaccuracy, but okay, there's nothing, there's no concrete reason behind it, just depends on how fast you develop your pieces and which position. Let's say here knight g3, and it's much better according to engine, followed by queen f2, and it's much better than knight c3, but obviously it's not obvious at all, right? So bishop b4, knight f2, captures, rook e8, Sindarov tries to be very aggressive here, but Nakamura managed to play well, and again we arrive to more or less normal position, pawn takes. And here, just basically this game will be very short in analysis. Rook a3 defending the pawn, knight e5, and okay, here was played move king c2, trying to play d4 later, right? King c2 is the idea of going d4 now. I think there was no need at all, like d4 directly can be played, because after knight c4 fork, okay, I mean if knight has to go away, right, you don't have any problems, and you just keep pushing all the pawns here. So let's say anti-only trick, knight c4, I think it's quite obvious that after king a2 there is no, you know, no discovered attack, and any check you can play with d5, even intermediate, if knight takes, you take, and I mean that's completely winning. Bishop pair for the rook on open position is winning. But okay, king c2, trying to be prophylactic, and now d4, so still well done by Hikaru. Queen e7, and okay, rook a1, this move already like looks obvious because rook is hanging with queen pointing out, so it went back, and here, like if you can pause the video, try to do it and guess what is the move. First of all, we need to clarify that this position is completely like classical chess already, because this king is castled, this king is half castled because he didn't, but he's in safe position, and we're more or less the pawn structure is normal, it's all defined. Like, how Hikaru doesn't spot move queen b5? I mean, it's attacking the knight. According to engine, for you to understand, the best thing is already to give up the knight here, just like that, because position is so hopeless. It's around +3, but okay, b6, only logical normal move to continue playing. Then b4, you can kick the knight again. Now, if knight c4, then, or knight b7, like whatever knight goes, because this knight looks dangerous, but it doesn't have any jump potential, right? So queen a6 against both of these moves, and a5, like, you know, pawn takes and mate. Basically, it's over. I mean, maybe it should be fun to kick the knight earlier, but whatever. Basically, that is the plan, right? And it's completely winning. You know these typical patterns, right, in classical chess, where we hold, like, I know, queen d2, like bishop e3, you know, queen d2 against fianchetto here. Rook h1, we play bishop on h4, we play h4, h5, we take here, we play queen h6, and we mate, right? It's classical chess patterns that all kids know about. How Naka doesn't spot it, extremely strange, but more strange even what he did instead of it. Okay, you, for some reason, you have bad day, you don't see queen b5, but then he shows complete misunderstanding of position. He plays bishop d4, just look at this, bishop d4, c5, and he gives up the bishop for a knight. I know that knight was strong, it's true, but in the same time this knight, it was only good square for him, so it kind of was stopping other black pieces from entering to the game. And bishop was quite good as well. I mean, I can't say that this bishop is much worse than a knight, because look at this diagonal. After this, since dark square bishop is not alive any longer, all the light square become weak, like, I mean, all the dark square. Bishop is bad, bishop is not going anywhere. Attack, you can forget about attack already, because now let's say queen b5, what I mean, b6 can be played simply. There's no attack any longer. And now it's white king who is in trouble. There is idea of a f5 breaking position. It's like impossible for a player of such level to not see it, like, that this can happen. So, and yes, you see, the game finished extremely quickly. Okay, game was decided extremely quickly, game continued for a while. Queen d6, queen f5, rook e5, queen h7. Okay, it's here I understand why Hikaru takes, because I mean, he can go back according to engine, etc., but position is already so bad strategically, right? So he wants gambling, but queen b6, pawn hangs, king run away, because if you ask why not simple rook b1, trying to defend it after c4, you know, queen comes to f2, so pawn is target, let's say before, queen f2, pieces are starting to fall, like king d1 is only move, queen g2, we maybe still can capture, but what's this position? I mean, queen f3, king, I know, to c2, to c1, but this pawn eventually will fall as well, so position is awkward, so he tries to run away, queen takes, and this is already, I mean, you can look at position without even me talking, because what is the sense of playing this? Okay, Hikaru tried, it's a blitz, whatever can happen, but again, Sindarov was very precise here. Takes, knight e4, a mini knight sacrifice. Since rook is pinned, it's a check, so bishop has to take, and now there's no discovery, eliminating all the counterplay of white, and okay, I mean, then the pass pawn do the job. And here Sindarov was 1 point ahead in tiebreak, and this next game, that was last game, Nakamura had to play for a win. He was forced to win this in order to continue playing the tournament, and we'll see that here already it was that bad that Hikaru didn't manage to win position with extra piece, like clear extra piece in endgame. Let's see what happened. c4, but once again I can mention that Hikaru plays so good until the time scramble. That's where it starts. So here worth mentioning that I noticed by just statistically in freestyle chess almost always the best move is to reply like, you know, the same move as white played. If c4, c5, let's say f4, f5, that's usually the best, the top engine choice, just in this position when pawn hangs. Obviously f5 is not the best according to engine, even though it's not bad, you can play it. But for you to understand, still it goes for the symmetry. Let's say engine suggests knight here, here, and still f5, right? So that's interesting details that I found out. But okay, g6 was played, because also here Hikaru needs to play for a win, and he finds very creative way to play. At first you might understand that like it looks weird to put queen like that, but we'll see this idea of Hikaru. As you see, he plays a gambit, he tries to attack and destabilize white position, and it works out for him again. The bishop e4, d5, so you see we are already in this very messy position that it favors player who has to play for a win by force. Bishop e5, all the Hikaru pieces are well placed right now, extremely good game so far. So king f1, yeah, if you ask me like why it's happened castle, probably he want, yeah, I mean, to keep rook on g1 in order to have some tricks on the g file. So queen f6, knight f5, g takes, pawn takes. It's a typical pawn piece sacrifice, very thematical one, because now you will recover it. I mean, yeah, definitely black will not give up the queen, so knight g6 and you recover it back. d4, here, yes, that's very strong move. We know now that these guys, young stars, are very tricky, and this is one of the situation. Extremely good tactical shot. As we see here, he spent, you don't see it once again, but 20 seconds in blitz, so he spent it and he found this in 20 seconds. Brilliant. d4, basically what's the point? If bishop goes back, after very strong move b3, first of all, this knight is very limited. Hikaru's knight cannot jump. Let's say if you trade, even pawn takes is good. Don't matter that pawns are doubled. So knight is limited, and black never really can even take this knight. Even that, let's say knight d7, white will wait for him to capture in order to now open up the diagonal for the bishop and checkmate there. So for you to understand, let's say knight d7. You can, okay, knight d7 is bad move. But let's say, once again, that it's not hanging. Let's say I play some random move, I don't know, queen h here, and let's say this, right? So here, instead of taking that, okay, again, you can do it, but some kind of h4 is good, because if, like, it's never good to win this pawn. Okay, first of all, you can't win it because queen hanging, but you understand, right, that bishop is very strong once diagonal becomes open. So d4 you probably forced to take on d4, and also, I mean, yeah, if you go away, except of this, I mean, worth mentioning that even this bishop like is not going anywhere, because white plays b3 to open up the bishop, definitely not to capture the pawn. That's to be clear, right? So if this pawn stays always here, bishop is stacked, this bishop never can capture, this knight doesn't have move. So d4 forcing opponent to take, and looks like, what is this? Why it was played? Knight hanging, pawn hanging, pawn doesn't exist, knight e6, double exclamation point, like extremely strong. It's triple attack on all the pieces. If queen e6, then it's obvious why it doesn't work, right? We capture, rook d4, and okay, in the game when we shouldn't forget white is fine with the draw, it's obviously white probably never loses. I mean, because rook can come to g4, pawn comes here, bishop pair that will be open in the second. It's impossible to lose. So if pawn takes here, that was the plan. Here queen h6, very, like, you know, silent move, looks like. It's still extra piece, but there's no defense. The threat is rook g6, basically with the mate or winning the queen. And if king tries to run away, there's a strong idea of playing rook g6 anyway. And queen g6, bishop h5 wins the game on the spot. Like, according to agent, queen h8 is possible, but then it's bishop h5, let's say take, king g7, rook g6, king away, rook takes d4, and it's very, very simple. Let's go back. So in this situation, after knight e6, knight f8 was played. Yes, so you can take the knight, bishop e5 was played. That's the reason, knight f8 takes, and okay, it's exchange for extra exchange for Sindarov, but we'll see that it's not that simple. c3, and here important moment. Here he's supposed to play e3 in this position with white. So it's very important to not let d4 happen, right? Because then these two pawns will be reinforced together. But the thing is that if you play it one move later, let's say rook g4 was played, d4, now since bishop has to be traded, right? Because I mean you can't play 3 for obvious reason here, because you will lose your bishop, so you have to take, rook takes, and now e3, since bishop is not here, bishop e3 just simply wins a pawn, right, because of a pin. So that's why it was very important to play e3 here, because now e3 just losing, bishop takes just losing because queen's protecting on f3. Small detail, but I think was again quite obvious, because like why you will let something like that to black. But okay, rook g4 by Sindarov, d4, here is there in time trouble, that's understandable. And again, bishop takes, pam pam, queen h4, c2, take, and now there's no discovered for white, and after rook here, king here, we reach this position. Once again the question, right guys, how do you think, how hard is it for players like Hikaru, is a very experienced player in the time trouble, to win this position? Yes, it's 2 pawns for the piece, but there's no counterplay almost, like king comes to d7, how I supposed to not win it with black? I mean, whatever, like rook c8, I know, whatever. But let's see what happens. So a4, Sindarov gives up h4 pawn without hesitation, a knight or bishop takes on h4, a5, knight away, bishop d4. And now if you pause the video, okay, not need even to pause, say me please, like in question of 10 seconds, your guys who are not that experienced or professional as Hikaru, which move is the first that comes to your mind in this position? For me, like, how you do play in this position? First of all, we want to avoid any counterplay as possible. There is some counterplay now with the pawns. So, which is the simplest plan to win, right? Probably just to bring king closer. I mean, because first of all, we need to check in this position. Is white threatening something? And the answer is no. Because if we don't allow white to do anything, what he will do? I mean, bishop is perfectly placed. Rook a6 is one of the options to be played, trying to get this pawn. Again, instead of rook a6, we'll see first of all that other move doesn't make sense, because there is a blockade already, king comes to d7. After b6, let's say for instance, pawn takes, but pawns are doubled, like king d7, whereas this pawn is not going anywhere, like rook b8. Right, and then, I mean, you take these 2 pawns and you win here. So rook a6 is only move probably that scared Hikaru here, but how hard is it to see knight c7? Like, you attack the rook, you forcing him to take, because if rook has to go back, I mean king d7 once again, right? So you forcing rook trade, after takes, knight, it's not dangerous at all. I mean, after bishop goes somewhere, I don't make it c5, right? It's clear that there is a blockade, knight here, and you blockade just light squares, right? I mean, like before, there's no way to push any pawn, right? I mean, b5, you take, and you always on time, say bishop b8, whatsoever, you can play king c6 as well. Like, even give up the pawn, like, doesn't matter, it's winning still. But, and yeah, I mean, there is no way for white to bring the king even faster than black. So it was completely winning with king e8, there's no ideas for white. I mean, once again, if not rook a6, I know, not a6, not b6, then what you do is e3, e4, like trying to look for the fourth move, again knight c7, the same story. Not even letting rook go to a6, let's say b6, we can try to continue, let's say take, knight away, b7, this is all covered, there is no rook c8 check, never. So extremely strange situation was. Instead Hikaru plays, probably there were other moves that were winning, let's say, we can try to play knight c7, also winning the game. But rook b8, it's a terrible move, it's a move that shows that Hikaru doesn't have understanding that usually he has, because why will you give up this pawn for free with pawn of opponent on a5, obviously white captures it. And now we arrive to a position that is really not easy to win at all, trust me, because after a6, according to Engine once again, move knight c7, the same that Hikaru never seen in his life probably, winning the game. Why? Because you attack the pawn, rook is tied to the defense, so basically after bishop goes away to, I don't know, d4, let's say, you can just bring rook on time. And that it looks like black pieces are passive, and it's true, but I mean in 2 moves you bring the king, right? And let's say even before, like trial, before, because I mean this move is not even possible. I mean, I'm trying to find counterplay here together with you, but b5 is not there, king d7 next, rook throwing away, like knight b5, take this. The position is completely winning again. But instead of knight c7, rook a5, it's already mistakes that according to Engine is a draw. Here what blundered Hikaru, he blundered this, a brilliant move, bishop d4. So probably what Hikaru saw is rook c8 check, and bishop d4 now. The problem is that after move e5, that's because this is easy to blunder, to be honest. After move e5, bishop is hanging. So if bishop were to go somewhere, let's say here, it's already black who will be winning. Let's say knight f4 threatening mate in 1, maybe king here, rook a6, like whatever, you can take a pawn. Alright, but it's like typical also puzzle rush idea. There was also a few who doing puzzles, like try to flip, if exercise doesn't go well, try to flip moves and make second move of the line as a first. So bishop d4, threatening mate in 1, after whatever, like e6, king e8, like he needs to stop it, e5, basically he needs to stop it, looks like with e5, because bishop is under attack. According to Legend, king e8 still was saving the game, let's say a7, king d7, rook c5, and okay, probably it's just draw position, take, and draw. But okay, Hikaru needed to win, so I understand why he played e5 here. So what he can spot that now, with exchange of pieces, remember with rook c8 check, king was already on g7, now king is on f8, so bishop f8, c5, excuse me, is a check. So king moves, but doesn't matter to be honest, where, a7, and game is lost. Like if you try to play king d7 trying to stop rook from coming to c8, then there is obvious win with rook check. Let's say king, I know, c7, rook takes. So difference between pre-position and this, it's obvious that pawn is defended here and it's completely winning. So yeah, I mean, there was complete winning. So Hikaru played e4 and offers the draw, but I mean, it's obvious that after rook c8 position just lost, right? I mean, white wins the game. But since draw was okay for Sindarov to proceed, he agreed the draw and didn't want to win this position to avoid any risks. So that was it. I mean, to not win this position, it's just horrible play. Just worth mentioning also that maybe here was some idea. Wait, I remember there was some line with some idea. Either it was here, no, it's not here. After rook a5, I believe it was, yeah, bishop d8, maybe, yeah, I think e5 here and king g7 idea. So yeah, okay, here was very interesting position that even this was still tricky because looks like it's the same. Like, I mean, rook c8 is coming, a8, but after knight f4, white still needs to find that king e1 check. Once again, Hikaru needed to win. Because here, after rook a2, the problem white can repeat for the draw. Because definitely we can't take here with the rook because of a8. I mean, not because of a8 directly, right? I mean, king escapes, rook here and rook c8, and then a8. But if white wants to play for win, after king c3, king e6, knight e6 round is strong move, very strong move, and white has just two winning moves here, actually. Because let's say the pawn is hanging. If you remove bishop from the diagonal, black just captures the pawn and wins the game. So why not bishop b6? Still, I mean, there are some tricks with knight here, maybe, that you shouldn't take because you lose the pawn. But okay, but there was other brilliant move, rook takes e6, just wanted to show you this in the end of the video. Pawn takes b4, and black is one entire rook up in this position, but actually he can't stop the pawns from promoting. Let's say e4, trying to bring bishop, let's say b5, bishop, yeah, I mean, where bishop, let's say bishop here, king b3, and bishop a3, a8 is another problem here. So game becomes lost. So as we see, Hikaru gets eliminated, playing very well, I think, in the classical chess. So this part, I will say that he plays well, but in time scramble players, Hikaru getting older, guys. I mean, Hans has a point because it's clear that there is no other explanation. I understand one game, I understand two, but 3 games out of 4 you play so bad in time scramble, you're too slow, something going on wrong with Hikaru, since he cannot perform well in blitz tournaments anymore as well, like over the board. Online, obviously, he's chess.com king and wins all the games. I mean, I like to see Hikaru's recaps, etc. Like, it's not like a hate or something, but definitely, I mean, when I saw this question, like, top GM, one of the best in the world, doesn't win with extra piece, I don't know. Was just too bad from him. We'll continue following this tournament. We'll mention that today is day of the semifinals. Follow the tournament and follow our channel as well. If you like the video, put a like or comment, and see you in next videos. Ciao!